I would ask them on the front end, hey, if I see anything that looks out of the ordinary while I'm here today, would you like me to bring it to your attention?
You're asking permission. Yeah, it's perfect.
Nobody ever said no.
Perfect.
Ultimately, they would end up still moving forwards and doing whatever I was recommending, but they didn't feel good about it because the previous guy didn't mention it. That kind of leads into what we're talking about today is, IAQ and in-home sales is obviously you are selling, but if you present it properly, you're providing solutions for a problem or a potential problem that they might have. And so the way I see it is if you're not offering those solutions, you're not doing your job thoroughly. And that's just the way that I present it to the homeowner. I would tell the homeowner that, and they would appreciate that. They're like, man, this guy's really going out of his way to try to help me out.
Think about the reverse, right? If you didn't say something,
yes,
I've had automated, and you didn't say something, and then a problem occurred later. My analogy always is I take it back to, the doctor's office, right? You go for a doctor's visit. It could just be a regular physical, right? And there's things they always do. And I always, being a trades guy, you always take temperature, pressure, maybe not all the time pressure, but, you get your vitals. You walk in, you get your weight, your height, and maybe blood pressure, right? Yeah. If a doctor sees something abnormal in that exam, he's going to say something to you, right? Otherwise, that's malpractice.
100%. So, I mean, there's from an approach standpoint, I would take the objection out of the way right in the very beginning. When I first get there in the meet and greet of the call, I would always ask the homeowner to take me to the thermostat, right? And then regardless of whether it's IAQ or maybe a potential for a lead for a new system, or maybe it's a weak capacitor on a motor or something, I would ask them on the front end, hey, if I see anything that looks out of the ordinary while I'm here today, would you like me to bring that to your attention?
You're asking permission. Yeah, it's perfect.
Nobody ever said no.
Perfect. Yeah.
Nobody ever said no to me, literally. And I did it thousands of times, but I've had the experience that you just mentioned happen on quite a few occasions where I get there and previous, maybe a different company, or sometimes even the company that I worked for, previous technician, didn't mention certain things that were clearly an issue before I got there. And they didn't just start, 3 months or 6 months ago on the prior maintenance. They had been an issue, but the technician never brought it to light and they never talked about it. And I had to overcome all these hurdles. Like, let's just say we're talking about IAQ and the cabinet is full of mildew, right? I'm talking like full of mildew. Like, I get the homeowner and show them, and visually it's full of mildew. I didn't just start 6 months prior, but the previous technician didn't want to bring that to the customer's attention. So now it put me in a spot where the customer's uncomfortable and I'd have to go through and overcome all these objections. And ultimately they would end up still moving forwards and doing whatever I was recommending, but they didn't feel good about it because the previous guy didn't mention it, right? He didn't just simply bring it to their attention.
Yeah. That's so, so you in most cases, and this is in regards to a maintenance call, right? That's how you would start, just by when you first got there, you introduce yourself and you say, hey, if I do see something, take us down that path a little bit here. So you ask that question, and then where do you go from there?
Yeah, so I would kind of give them like an outline of what to expect while I'm on the call that day. I'd ask them that question, as I mentioned. If I find anything out of the ordinary, would you like for me to bring that to your attention? They'd always say, yeah, of course. That's what you're here for. You're doing maintenance. Maintenance is to find little problems that could turn into big problems that you can solve before they turn into a big problem, and that's why they call it maintenance. And so I would go at that point from the thermostat, and I would ask them to show me the equipment, and they would show me where the air handler is located, or the furnace, and then same thing with the outside unit. And then I would tell them at that point, hey, this is my plan. I turn down the thermostat 10 degrees so it stays calling. I would go in and do a temp split, and I would tell them, once I do that, I'm going to take everything apart. If I find anything that looks abnormal, I'll bring it to your attention, and then I'll put it back together, and I'll go to the outside unit, and I'm going to do the same thing out there. And the process, obviously clean everything as well. And I mean, all that takes 30 seconds to maybe a minute at most. And sometimes in that conversation, it would open up opportunity conversation. But you know what, man, the last time the guy was here, he mentioned X, Y, or Z, whatever it was. The guy mentioned there was mildew in the cabinet. Can you check on that while you're here today? So I would always just kind of lay it out a little bit as I went and put the customer in a place where they would expect me to bring something to them potentially. So there was never like this big surprise. Because and when I first started in the industry, I would like bring all this stuff to the customer and I wouldn't, go through that process, and it would feel like a big surprise to them. And then, I'm asking for $2,000 for IAQ, and they're,
Yeah.
what the heck? I feel like you're trying to sell me all this stuff. So I learned
Yeah.
that communication piece to kind of break it down as I go through the
Mhm.
call, to give them the opportunity to see what I'm out there doing and why I'm out there.
Would you also ask them in the beginning when you first get there, do they have any areas of concern? Was that a general?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I would, mention, do you have any hot spots or cold spots? Does anybody have any allergy concerns, any breathing concerns? And again, that in itself would open conversation. Yeah, I got COPD, or I got asthma, or my kids Johnny's had allergies and hasn't been able to breathe for 6 months. I
Mhm.
mean, that would open up a lot of conversation as well. So that's a pretty simple approach. Again, that takes 60 seconds.